Good. All right, well, welcome to the panel, and thank you all for coming out today. I am Mateo Cervels from eMarketer. I cover Latin America and Spain and all the digital trends happening in the region and in Spain as well. Today, I am very excited to be moderating this panel with my great panelists here. We live in such an exciting time today. We have all this data at our fingertips and all these insights that we can derive. We know who our users are, their demographics, what their lifetime value is, how we can predict that they're going to be buying something, when they're going to be buying something, on what platform and device. And it's a very exciting time because, especially in Latin America too, our latest forecasts at eMarketer from just this end of the year, in terms of mobile usage, Latin America is actually the second highest region in the world, with about 420 million mobile phone users by the end of this year alone. And which, if we put that in a context of like a global setting, it's about 10% of all global phone users. Now, that's after Asia Pacific, and just in terms of sheer population, Latin America is obviously going to come second. But on top of that, Latin America, with mobile phone usage, becomes, what do we do on our mobile phones? We look at social media, we look at messaging apps, we look at e-commerce. So actually, Latin America is also now the second highest region, again, after Asia Pacific, with 11.5% of all social media users. And by the end of our forecast, by the end of our forecast for this year, 2018, almost half of the entire population in Latin America will have used social media at least once in the past month on a mobile device, which is quite exciting for all of us as brands and marketers and even advertisers, because there are so many opportunities now where we as marketers can now reach our consumer on a variety of different platforms. And as we do that, we're able to track all of their data and leverage so many interesting insights. But how do we really leverage these insights in a meaningful way that we can make strategic decisions? So today, I'd like to welcome my panelists. To my left, I have Marcos Ordenes. He is the industry manager of CPG at Waze Google. Next to him is Chandos Quill. She is the VP of Global Data and Strategic Partnerships at Axiom. And then last but certainly not least is Marcela Doria. She is the Research Director of Twitter Latin America. And I'm very happy to have you guys here. So I'd like to open up the panel. As we look at all these data trends and data insights, how reliable is the data that we're collecting on all these different platforms? And how do we as marketers, advertisers, or brands, how are we able to collect this data in a meaningful way, but also trust the data and what it's telling us so that we can actually make these key decisions? So whoever would like to take a stab at it first.
I can start. So that is data, no? The data is there available, and I think there's many ways that you can get insights from it. And on Twitter, we have in Mexico, for example, we have around 6 million tweets per day. So its amount of data is incredible. And we have the luxury on Twitter that we are live and public. So everything that people say is very spontaneous, and it's there for us. You can use, and you've been seeing a lot of conversations around many industries, many brands. So I think today we have a good field to get insights from our consumers, because they are there very giving this kind of information to us. So we have been using a lot, and I think it's been helping not only us to understand behaviors, but also brands.
I believe completely that nowadays data is super reliable. We have plenty of platforms with different kind of data that bring us reliable data. But the important point for marketers or advertisers is to find which is the useful data for them. How they can find the data that is useful for their purposes and their key objectives. We used to have a way of saying in Google to don't become a dragon, like the dragon from Lord of the Rings with plenty of data and treasures, and we focus a lot on getting data, but without understanding what we're actually looking for. So I always, even though that is reliable for sure, just be sure what you're looking for. Don't become a dragon on that.
Yeah, I would just add that I think that certainly from a platform or publisher type perspective, the data is probably very reliable in terms of how you're collecting. I think where the challenge sits is with marketers and brands. So I think that we see a lot of still issues with the data being complete and necessarily connected. So those are two challenges that still, I think, exist. And once those overcome, then I think you have more reliability, then you can use it to predict and grow customer experiences, et cetera. But that's, I think, still a challenge for a lot of companies.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, it was just with so many things and trying to organize and put all these, we have all these different silos and trying to compile all of it into something meaningful that we can, extrapolate and understand. It's a challenge, and it's always good to have important data.
Yeah. I believe that there is no bad data. I think there is a disorganized data.
True.
And I agree super with Marco when he says that we need to know what you want from the data, because depends on your goal, what you want. There is a different way that you can look at it. I like to say, I even have in my handle that they say, I have your answer, what's your question? Because I do believe that the data can give us so many insights, but you need to know what kind of insights you want to get from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it still starts with the business question, right? What are you trying to solve, and what do you need to do to drive your business forward? Start with that, and then you can figure out what data to use. Mm-hmm. And then there's plenty of really smart statisticians and analysts out there that can help you solve that problem.
For sure. And stemming off of that, actually, like one of the themes I've noticed this week throughout, some of the panels I've attended is this, overarching theme of relevance. And, how do we, as brands, how do we stay relevant? Not only in Latin America, but even on a global level. We can send out a tweet, we can make a Facebook post, send a quick snap, or post an Instagram story, and everything is live in real time right away. So in the concept of relevance, how can we leverage the power of data and real-time marketing in order to create content that is targeted, relevant, and in this real-time environment, all by using the data itself?
I was just having a discussion before with a friend of mine, and there was another partner of that, and they were talking about content. I think we've been talking about content like for the last 5 years, content is the king, content is the queen. I believe now we're coming to a point that is con data. I invented this word, con data. Basically, we have to create content out of this data, no? Mm-hmm. I mean, and data has a huge power of relevance to bring advertisement in a new way. In the case of ways that we live in the car world, like we live a lot in context and in very specific moments. The key moments and the data that bring us, like what time people goes to these places, are they going to discos or are they going to supermarkets? It's key to make campaigns that are completely different to the other ones and much more segmented to the right audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the more that you understand about your customers, the more you can understand what is relevant to them and build the content that makes sense to them, segment them out. Not everybody's the same, right? So you really have to break down who your customers are based on the different products and then tailor your content and so forth. And I think companies like yours that have now this additional layer of where people are adds a whole other set of valuable data that can be used to drive relevancy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if you understand, you know your audience, you can provide the relevant data for the specific audience. I think today the data has helped us to be much more assertive what kind of content you're going to provide, and how brands can benefit from it. So we have a good example on Twitter because we do have like various kinds of teams where people follow, and we know that you have specific people that like sports, people that like news, people that like music, and so on. So when you understand this audience and you can provide content to partnership, we have a partnership team on Twitter, content partnership team that can help brands to find the right content for that right person. I think it's like we have a very good combination of data, understanding our audience, and the relevant content for that audience.
And aligned with that, yesterday we were talking about data. Like in marketing, we have worked a lot with the target of, like the audience target, from 18 to 25, from 30 to 35. But then when you start gathering data, you discover that people in the same age has completely different tastes. Like you can find people of 18 with the same interests of somebody with 60 years old. Mm-hmm. So you can actually leverage content that is specific content for this kind of people that they like these kind of things. Things that you were talking about related with the sports, but not with this age. But you can find them through the data.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's much more than just the demographic.
Exactly.
It's all about the things that people do, how they spend their time, how they spend their money, the things that they're interested in. You can't just look at simple things like age and gender and things like that. It goes back to, for us, a very Strong philosophy is, we call it people-based marketing for a reason. It's not about segments, it's really understanding the people first, because everybody is different. You can put them into segments or audiences for marketing, but you want to build it from the bottom up.
And what's interesting, when you do that, you can even see results in terms of campaigns or brand lift. So we do several studies on Twitter, and we see that when you have an engaged audience with the right content, we can have like very good KPIs for our partners. In Mexico is a good example. We have 31% of campaign recall when we reach the engaged person for that specific content. It's even much higher than the global results, which is 8%. So this is just to bring that if you have the right content for the right audience, they're going to engage and going to give good results for your brand.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and I think that's also one of the things too. Instead, one of the other concepts I've heard too is, instead of creating these like very siloed segmentations, we also have to now create these like customer profiles. It's not so much, okay, they're a millennial, this is a baby boomer. No, it's like, well, what does that mean? Even within these overarching demographic categories, there's, you have, millennials are very different. You have like the younger millennials, the older millennials, and then you have different interests or different geographic locations, and how do urban millennials versus rural millennials, parent millennials versus the urban single millennial. So, it's creating these customer profiles are very useful for that. And then kind of shifting gears a little bit, going into using like kind of predictive marketing and how we can leverage this data, and also like going with the notion of building consumer profiles. Now, for some brands that are global brands that maybe are looking to go into a different region, for the purpose of this conference, let's just say they want to enter Latin America. Maybe they want to get into Mexico or Brazil. How can they leverage the power of analytics and predictive marketing in order to, maybe they don't have that tangible data right away from a campaign that they've run in the country, but if they're going to start running a campaign, how can they use some type of predictive marketing from tendencies they know, maybe about women, maybe overarching things about women or overarching themes about millennials in order to at least start marketing within the region?
Yeah, I mean, we work with a number of advertisers on exactly that. And that's, I think, where the role of third-party data can come in, right? So if a brand or a marketer wants to enter a market, but they don't have a lot of customer data from which to profile or build their analysis, they can use third-party data in that market of all the consumers and what they do know about maybe their customers in other countries. They can look at leveraging that and start using that as a starting place to build campaigns and drive awareness, and then test and get the results to see what's working. So that would be one way.
I think I'm the only researcher here, no? But well, we do this all the time. So information for us, like researchers, are key. So you look a lot of back data. It's super important to look back data. But you also want to make sure that we're tracking the correct data, to keep like with the monitoring behaviors. But we do the same. We work a lot with third parties, companies, when we do not have enough information about that market to get the best information. Basically.
That's exactly, I mean, right now, whenever you enter in a new market, like could be LATAM, I think we're still very far away from perfect predictive data, like predict because human people are completely unexpected in the way they do things. They still do, we can find some kind of expected things, because even when we look to past data, it's hard to find some kind of buckets for the people. Like, for example, in Waze, we were working in the part of, okay, let's try to see what people does, and let's try to make a profile out of it. For example, let's look for what does a single father do? They go in the mornings to the school, later they will go to work, after they will go probably back to the kindergarten, and you can create buckets of this kind of data and accuracy regarding data in the past in an 85%, 90% level. So when you're going into looking into a model like into the future on predicting behavior of data, I think we're still far away from perfect accuracy. So based on taking data from what we already have from the past is the first step before trying to predict anything, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, what you try to do on Twitter, you have some projects where you try to predict some behaviors based on conversations. So we do have a telco company in Brazil. We're working now with some statistic company helping us to get that conversation and try to predict project cancellation, package cancellation, like what people talk before they go there and they cancel their package. So, but this is a modeling, and we are, of course, we're in a test. I do believe that it's very hard, but I do also think that people somehow, with their behaviors, they can give some tips what's going to happen in the future. But I think we're still like very, very in the like first phases of trying to predict the future with data.
I think there's also unique data sets that will be interesting to leverage in predicting, the next purchase that somebody's going to make or product they're going to buy. And I think actually some of the data that you have is interesting. Being able to now layer on top of that where somebody's going to be, likely to be, and knowing also what they might likely purchase. So I think the more, we're moving into this digital ecosystem and the more data that's available, it's going to make the ability to create these predictions all that much more interesting and powerful.
Definitely, and then actually, since we brought up the topic of like geolocation itself, we, with our mobile devices, it tracks probably more information that I don't even know about myself, and it probably knows more, the data analytics probably know more about me than I even know. So with, as people are on these mobile devices and, like say in the instance of Waze, where you're on the go and you're tracking where are you going, what are you doing, or on Twitter when you're sitting maybe in a particular location where an event is taking place and there's a particular moment or hashtag trending about a particular event, like this week, hashtag AWLATAM, we can detect, okay, we are all in Mexico City. Maybe a brand is going to leverage that geolocation data to target us saying, okay, well, I see you're here. Maybe check out this, or if there's a restaurant location here or a product they want me to buy. How can we leverage this data of geolocation? And then also with that, how do we leverage it in a way that's also not too intrusive so we don't come off as a little stalkerish that it knows too much about us? So how do we, I guess the importance of it, and then also finding that nice balance between targeting but not creepy targeting?
I believe in the geomarketing ads, that Waze is basically that. That we are just starting to discover what you can do and which are the best approaches to the consumer, because we're kind of an innovative platform in this area. I think it's happening not only in geomarketing, but in all the advertisement that we have to be useful. I mean, advertisement could be easily skippable and you can skip out of it, but regarding the content, it has to be useful. It has to be useful for you in that specific moment. For example, if you are driving at 3 in the morning and they tell you, hey, it's a great time to have a breakfast. There's no match there. There's no usefulness here, no? But I was thinking this morning, maybe you're going to the airport and a specific brand says like, did you forget have you checked your passport? Like you got your passport, no? This moment of being useful and understanding usefulness in that situation, like it's time for lunch, maybe it's useful to tell you about the promotion, or I'm going to the supermarket. We have to try it with advertising nowadays, try to become useful in order not to become creepy.
Exactly.
No? Because if the first thought is like, okay, this is useful. And it also happens to me several times when you're in the websites. And so you see kind of these remarketing ads and say, how did I find this out? Like, I don't remember I have even checked the website or something, It's coming from somewhere, no? And it's that the line between usefulness and creepy is very, very close to each other.
Yeah, I think location-based data opens up a lot of interesting marketing applications. There's time-based offers, right? Based on where you are, your limited time, you could do time-based offers. You could do a lot more around events. And think about when you have an event, all of the different things that you can do around that event. I think the application of weather data is interesting. So based on where you are and what the weather is, there might be applications for the offers and the things that you can do. So I think like I said, it just adds another dimension to being able to use that for being relevant, being timely. But yeah, absolutely, the creepy factor still applies. You have to be able to make sure that you're using it appropriately in a way that's going to build trust, not scare people off.
Yeah, we need to be clear. No, I think this is what you need to do. If you're clear with a consumer, user, that like this geolocation is there, so if they allow you to follow where they are, I think it's fine. And if they know that you. And there are some applications that you can do also, even helping brands. So you had a case here in Mexico that you had a store that was about to launch. Yeah, I think opened the store, new store here in Mexico, and they want to know how many people were or who were tweeting from the store because they want to bring people to the store. So in this case, was a very well use of geolocation because you help the brand and also gave this opportunity to the user, let the brand knows that they were tweeting from the store. So I think there are many ways that you can use geolocations. You need to be clear if you're a consumer user that you're doing that. Otherwise, it's abusive.
Exactly.
That's actually what you're talking about the visits to the store.
Exactly.
That is one of these kind of new metrics that is coming that when it's been always in all the histories, like I want people to come to my store and I want higher purchase intent. These metrics that now we're trying to develop better, to understand better, like if they saw this ad in a video ad in YouTube, or they saw this ad in search and it happened 2 weeks later that they come to the visit and they actually see it, or through Waze if they come to Waze, and connected all this media, that was something you were saying in your first answer, how we connect all the data and media that we have to make it at the end to show the profitability of what marketers are doing will be great and amazing.
Yeah, I think there's so much more technology now to try to keep track of that will help with that. I mean, now you have ways of tracking people that walk into a store. I think the challenge is that the data exists. It's just, again, goes back to how do you connect it and use it to show results, show ROI.
One of the challenges, yeah.
Exactly. And ROI is always the main challenging factor of, how do we use this data to actually show that? And also looking into with this data and creating personalized content, do you guys have any examples, or maybe without naming names per se, do you have any examples of like our case stories that you could share of brands that you've worked with in the past that have actually listened to the data itself, that have used it and created or had a good experience in launching a campaign or a success story as a result of data and the segmentation from that?
I can start here. We at Twitter we do research from 360 research because it's before the fact, during the campaign, after the campaign. So we do all the when you're playing some campaigns with your clients, you make sure that you're given the best insight for them to plan better the campaign. Mm-hmm. So we have some examples. We had a film company. They want to know how they could provide or have the best campaigns. So what you gave to them, the research was that it was about a movie that they will launch, now release a new movie. They want to know what moment would be best. We found out that, for example, on Wednesday, when people go to the movies, they do not know what movies they're going to watch. And when they go to the movies on Saturday, they know already the movies that they're going to watch through conversations. So in this case, you gave them this insight. They could plan the campaign based on that. So on Wednesday, they suggest them to go to the movie, and they gave the name of the movie. And on Saturday, it was a completely different campaign. So this is a way, I don't know if I answered your question, but this is the way that we use the data and also our insights to have the best campaign and guide our clients to talk the appropriate way with their consumers.
Absolutely.
I think an example might be we have a very large financial services client, and they have a number of different credit cards products, and their challenge was needing to be able to build a profile or segmentation for each of those products. So obviously this is where all the data comes into play and building that profile. And then what they did is after that was created, they used that to drive an omni-channel campaign. So they used created the creative and everything associated with those profiles, and then ran campaigns in addressable TV, in digital, and in direct mail. And obviously what that did for them was it really helped reduce a lot of waste that they might have otherwise encountered across those channels, and then obviously increase the ROI and the lift in their marketing and driving opportunities down the funnel. So just an example.
In Waze, one among our best partners is the vertical of restaurants, quick service restaurants, like all the brands of like McDonald's, Burger King, Domino's Pizza. And we really understand how users are very spontaneous on going to restaurants in this vertical. It's more like feeling like, oh, I really feel like a burger, I really feel like a pizza because it's the best moment for this. What we did, or we do with them actually, is we really understand how the Wazers are navigated to the different competitors. So we can understand easily where, regarding your main chain, where are your weaknesses here? Like from 9 to 12, you're actually facing very hard times versus all your other competitors. So maybe all your efforts in marketing should be focused more on addressing this part as you are having the same offer. No, I mean Waze are kind of a good sample of users in Mexico, but sometimes they have specific things. But you can pull the data from there to decide how to where or at what times improve the strategy or boost your strategy. In this case, it's very simple to say.
Exactly. In time of day, I always found, coming from a marketing background and working in the weeds with campaigns, it's always one of the things too. Do we serve this ad? And I would always run my analytics. I'd, initially put the campaign out and see how the analytics performed. And it always surprised me how the data worked. Like sometimes you'd see, well, among the millennials, they're up at 11 o'clock at night. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's a little too late to run a campaign. But in terms of usage, they were online, interacting with the campaign. And now it's leveraging those insights to something that you would have never known otherwise, and wasting ad dollars where you can say, okay, if I know my target audience is online at, say, 11 o'clock at night, I'm going to throw more ad dollars to really target them better versus during the day or mid-afternoon, and vice versa, whatever demographic you work with, because it's all about being relevant and targeting them where they are, when they're online, what they're doing, and in a way that you're going to get the best reaction from them and not any repercussions from that.
Mm-hmm. I think that is helping everyone, or it's helping us as users and consumers, and it's helping the marketers, because it's providing a more relevant content, more relevant advertisement. I think in the end of the day, data is I've always been a fan of data because I'm a researcher for many years, but I think now is in the digital world, it's much easier to use the data, and then sites is transforming the way that we talk to consumers.
Simplicity. That's sometimes we talk about data at the start. Is we look at many things, many KPIs, CTRs here over there, and sometimes it's so simple. Okay, at what time do they watch TV?
Yep.
Exactly.
No. Sometimes it's just that key point.
Exactly. Even too when they're watching TV, it's also now what device are they on? Are they on, is it on a TV advertisement you want to target them with at that hour? Are they on their mobile phone or on both? And then you create this whole omni-channel experience where you have the traditional media or this, or do you have, say, if they're listening to radio in their car or radio at work on, say, a digital platform like Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora. There's all these different platforms we have to also be aware of in order to really engage and understand how to break away from just saying, okay, I'm going to throw all my ad dollars into Google search, or I'm going to throw all my ad dollars into Facebook, which are also excellent platforms, but there are so many other mediums that you could also leverage and really get honed in targeted results. And now, shifting gears off topic with that, one of the things too that we're seeing now is this topic of fake news, and it's first it started in the U.S. and then I've slowly seen it now become like a global thing of this fake news, either among politicians that don't agree with someone or something, oh, I don't agree with you, it's fake news. We're in such a real-time environment where we have all this data and we're getting thrown all these different perspectives of things. How do we as marketers in this era of misinformation, how do we now leverage trust with our consumers and trust with the content we're putting out, so that when we post something, it's not, oh, that's fake news, I don't believe that. But how do we really build the trust in this new era, that digital era that we're now coming into?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that just and tie it back to your last statement a little bit too. I think we're in this very, tight relationship and correlation between using data to become better marketers in the sense that we are understanding the consumers and we're giving them, value exchange for them providing information, right? So if you use the data to build loyalty and build better customer experiences, consumers are going to be more willing to give you information and share their information with you. So it's kind of this very important symbiotic, I think, relationship that you need to use the data in a smart and accurate and complete way to drive better experience. That drives loyalty, and in exchange, consumers, are getting more value and they're more willing to give their information. So.
Absolutely.
I would say on Twitter, what we do, we have, as I mentioned before, we have a team of content partnership. So this team, the objective of this team is to bring partners and source of information, like many from sports, music, news, and so on. And then bringing these partners, we know that they are real, they are not fake. So we give an environment to advertisers where it's safe. So we say that we have brand safe environment because of these partnerships. So this is the way that we avoid the fake news on Twitter.
Exactly. For Waze, anything with the fake?
We actually don't have news yet in Waze. We live more in kind of, I mean, I was more thinking about the live content regarding, because fake news is like kind
That
of
too, absolutely.
live moments. And I also, and regarding the future, no, and regarding the situation of bringing data live, when we always see Minority Report and we see these people that they're having their own advertisement every moment, we are very far away from that because capacity of the people of creating creatives is impossible for everyone specifically and uniquely. It's not, we're not scalable on that part. But we can actually do very good campaigns on some live things that are happening. Like, for example, I don't know, there was a match before Real Madrid and PSG that was happening, sending that information in live time and giving the people the reality that is happening. They will check it after. Will be amazing. Regarding the fake news, the challenge there is that fake news have existed all our lives. I mean, we all have all these legends that when we were children, you know, and they told you about this thing and everyone thinks it's real, you know, it's something. The thing is that now with the power of internet, these kind of legends have become, the capacity of moving between lines is much faster. But the important part for marketeers is to have the capacity to counter with the same speed to do a counter arrest, and all these platforms can do it quickly.
Absolutely. And even too with like controlling like the narrative a little bit, you know, what are some, you know, I guess, tips you give marketers to, when they're creating their campaign collateral and their marketing creatives, what's like some words of wisdom and advice you'd give them to use the data properly in order to create campaigns?
I would say that goes beyond the reach. Yeah, I always say that because I think as we mentioned before, we're talking about relevance. And we have studies when it showed that in Latin America, just did a study with Ipsos, we showed that 78% of users in Latin America, mobile users, they have all apps open at the same time. So people are using everything. So this is it's a mistake to think that they are just using Twitter, just using Facebook, YouTube, and so on. And so Instagram, they're using all of them all the time. I think the media professional, they need to understand the role of each platform and make sure that it goes beyond reach because each platform plays a different role for that users. If you understand that role, you're going to plan much better your campaign.
Absolutely.
I'll take more of a pragmatic data perspective. You know, I think, you know, when's the last time that somebody really assessed the quality of the data that they're capturing? You know, we had an interesting conversation this week with a large company that had 70 million, they know they have 70 million customers, but really they can only market to 20,000. That is a lot of money being left on the table.
Absolutely.
So number one would be, you know, make sure you have assessed, you know, what data you have, how complete is it, how accurate is it, and then what can you do to enhance that data with unique sources that can help you build those profiles and do that analytics to drive relevancy. So it's kind of a three-step question and a way to think about things that we would recommend.
Absolutely.
I was completely agree with you in the reach part. Like you have to really look for your reach buckets. It's not about just massive reach, it's just about finding the proper users and consumers for you.
Absolutely. And just for time-wise, since, so to wrap this whole discussion up, what are some trends that you are super excited to see this coming year in 2018, or even, you know, even in the coming years as well? Is there something that stands out to you that says, I'm excited to get on the ground working with this?
I spoiled a little bit in my part before. I'm really looking forward to come with a simplicity in the data of in the visit to store. Because nowadays we have like very complex econometric models to study this, but I'm really looking forward to find a simple way to make all the media be connected and find data that make us easily understand that people was in this place purchasing this kind of data. I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of steps this year regarding that part.
I think we're really excited about this region. You know, we've built a number of products and services that really are around providing data and connecting that data to, you know, great platforms and publishers. And this market we see as just the perfect time to be, you know, having these discussions and educating and looking at ways to test and learn and use that. And so, I mean, that's extremely exciting for us. I think from a kind of future state, I think we are very interested in testing and working with artificial intelligence and machine learning. I think that's kind of a really hot topic, I know, for us, and how that will just add a whole nother dimension on big data and how to use that to better predict what consumers are going to do to drive business. So.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty excited the way that digital is being seen in the market. I think nowadays we have around 20% of the internet users in Latin America, they are mobile only. And I think this number is going to grow significantly in the next years. And what makes us excited is to see the money coming more and more to digital, because we still have a very traditional media. And now we see that the consumer is changing. People are 24 hours, 7 days of the week connected. And we do believe that it's going to reflect an investment from our partners and brands.
Absolutely. It's a very exciting time, and we could continue this discussion for quite a long time. And I initially came with a ton more questions, but I'd like to thank every one of you for coming in and being here on this panel. And I know we have a couple extra minutes. If anyone in the audience has a question they'd like to put forth to our panelists. Yes, in the back.
I have a question regarding transactional data. In order to predict future behavior, marketers are always driving revenue and transactions. So I'd be very curious about how you work with marketers, specifically around CRM and transactional data to inform your decisions.
You want to start?
I don't think I can contribute much with that. So we have not working with financial companies tracking it. But if I understood your question, we're talking about predicting behaviors. So as I mentioned before, we've been doing some studies for some telco companies in Brazil, predicting some cancellations and changes in package. But I do believe that there are many things that we can, from now on, start working to get data that we have and predict behavior and even churn and things like that. I don't have a specific example with finance.
No?
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Hello. Omar from PepsiCo here. Congratulations on your panel. Great information. And I have a quick question for you. Regarding predictive marketing, what's your perspective on how we as marketers should be looking for in predictive marketing platforms? Let's say, I don't know, in the market there are some platforms that uses artificial intelligence to predict some formats and channels where to put our money. But what is your perspective on what should we be looking for?
Is the question what to look for when you're evaluating different technologies?
Yes, totally.
I guess a quick comment for me would be, first off, how are you going to be using the technology, and what kind of data will you have to drive that? As far as evaluating different vendors, I don't really have a ton of opinion on that. But I think, certainly you can talk to a lot of them around what they are doing to build in the artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities in it. I think those have certain applications and places for uses. But there's still a lot to be done just in terms of, building models and building them quickly and easily, and being able to integrate multiple data sets to feed those models. So hopefully that helps. If not, I'm happy to look up some of that information for you or help you with that.
It's very difficult to build models. One of the things that we say to our partners when come with this question is looking for things that is outside your universe. Because sometimes you're just looking what's there, the media that we're buying, the information that I have from your users. So look outside that. What other kinds of information can help you to build models? We have this. We have this opportunity on Twitter, for example, that the conversations predict some behaviors. We do believe when you partner with us, your information with ours, and even with yours information, we can build a very a good model to try to predict something. but you need to go beyond your own universe, look outside that.
I completely agree on that. I mean, we're in the beginning of artificial intelligence. Like we started at least in the advertisement part. And this is exactly the point where your data and the other data you can bring into the models to create your own predictive models, because you have to look for what you want to predict for yourself. And the key point here is which data are you going to use to connect with which other data in order that the artificial intelligence models are going to help you. Like getting out of your context sounds amazing, yeah.
Excellent. I think we have time for maybe one more question, and then we'll be wrapping up.
Thank you very much. Very interesting information, especially for me that I do digital intelligence for a living, so this is my core every day. I would like an opinion from you. Last conversation, the last talk was about privacy, you know, and how this is affecting the importance of data and how much data we get. What would you recommend to deal with the barrier of data gathering due to restrictions on privacy settings nowadays?
Yeah, there's a number of things, and certainly happy to talk offline too. I mean, we spend a lot of time with our, clients that we work with, helping them evaluate their privacy policies. So how is your policy stated? How is it seen on the website or across your different, touch points and sense of that? So it's really important to stay ahead of where, as in the last panel mentioned, where regulation could be going, and being proactive, being transparent in how you're collecting the data, how you're using the data. All of those things are different aspects of how you can make sure that you are doing it in a way that will allow for the future use and value of that data. And there's a lot of detailed things underneath that, which I'm happy to chat with you after from my perspective.
All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. If you have any other questions, I will be around. I'm sure everyone will be floating around throughout the rest of the afternoon. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.